Hello and welcome. This is Gnostic Tarot Cards. My name is Timothy Reader Wright. This is Gnostic Tarot Cards Module 2, the Astrological Foundations in Continental Tarot. Now, Gnostic Tarot Cards is a blog, website. We have Facebook, Twitter, and there's the YouTube channel Gnostic Tarot Cards. So if you just go to YouTube and search Gnostic Tarot Cards, you're going to be able to see the channel and past modules. Like always, the first module will be available on its upcoming publish date for anybody who wants to see it for free. Within a 2-week to a month period, the module will be removed and will be for sale at the website. But currently, all modules will be available. So I'm happy you're here, and I hope you enjoy. Now here we have Christine Payne Towler. A lot of the Continental Tarot attributions that Gnostic Tarot Cards has decided to do an exegesis or commentary on has come directly from the research, iconography, history, and practices that were taught to me by my teacher, Christine Payne Towler. She has a site, Tarot University, on the World Wide Web, and I highly recommend you to get and acquire her book called The Underground Stream, which you can find on Amazon, and even you can email her to try to see if you can get private lessons. This is very important because tarot has never been talked about this way, and the groundbreaking research that Christine Payne Towler has done, coupled with her backing by scholar Dr. Louis Kaiser at wisdomseminars.org, has created a pretty much kind of dynamism that has brought us into this form of tarot development. Okay, so let's begin. Now we're looking here at a natal chart, not really a natal chart, but a zodiacal wheel. And this one happens to start at Sagittarius at the Ascendant, but your Ascendant will go in there. And we're going to start discussing more about this throughout this entire module. Now, astrology is a foundation in tarot. This has even been seen from the English lodges, so it's important to see that there are astrological correspondences, regardless if you use the Continental Tarot or if you're more interested in the English Rider-Waite or Crowleyan type tarots. Now, what is exactly astrology, though? Is it this hoary kind of thing that we've heard about, that, you know, I'm going to look into the paper or the magazine and I'm going to see what exactly is my horoscope and find out how the events of my day are going to go? Well, that's not what we're talking about here. And Dane Rudyard says that the natal birth chart is an archetypal pattern of individual selfhood. Now, what does this mean? Now, in the beginning, we talked about, in Module 1, we talked about the archetypes that were embedded in the tarot. And in astrology, especially the astrology that we're talking about here, you're going to see your chart, and you're going to see that chart as your cosmic self. Still a portion of the high divine, but that is going to be actually you. That's going to be your birth chart. And a natal birth chart happens at the time and the location of your first breath. So it's the first moment of consciousness when you take in that energy throughout your vital bodies and you energize, and now you are considered a incarnated human being. This is your birth chart. This is the time, this is the place, and there's a lot of stuff going on. As you'll see, there are 12 particular signs in the zodiac, and everybody knows this. So you have your particular sign, you have your symbol, and that corresponds to a constellation in the universe. But what we don't really talk about is what does astrology have as its foundations. So that's what we're going to go into in this module. But it's important to realize that this is not just something that can be placed over you. This is a fingerprint of the cosmos and it's specifically related to the person who pulls their chart. This is a gift that's given to us by the archetypes, and coming forward, we're going to find out exactly what it is this gift has to show us. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about astrology. And the first sign that we always need to look at is the Ascendant. So now, when we hear something like the Ascendant, what are we really talking about here? And now this is where we're really going to get into some heavy kind of contemplation and metaphysical study, because when I say the Ascendant, I'm not saying that there's this place out in the cosmos where the constellation was at the time of the sun rising. I'm not talking about that. That's actually a sidereal version of what happened. When we say that there's an Ascendant in tarotology, when we say that in our spread our self has been pulled, what are we saying? A lot of times you'll hear, pick your indicator card, pick the card that most represents who you are. This is going to be your Ascendant sign. Now mine, just by chance, is 0 degrees Aries. So on a lot of charts you're going to see the sun rising at Aries. And that corresponds with me, but like we've seen in the previous slide, that the sun can rise at any sign. And that is exactly what is going to be your Ascendant. Now what are we talking about when we say Ascendant? Well, the work that I'm going over is in a textbook recommended to me by Payne, Michael Myers' Handbook for Humanistic Astrology. And the reason why this is so important, because it turns this nebulous kind of, I don't know, energy of what's going on into an actual scientific way to present to the initiate what kind of expansions and what kind of foundational things we're dealing with. So in this book, it talks about the Ascendant as the symbolic point of individualization. So this is when we become a self, an actual whatever we are and whatever bodies we claim to have. It reveals the particular type of activity, provides the person with the type of experiences he must live through if he is to realize his destiny. The individual's attitude toward himself and his particular quality of self-awareness are also symbolized by the Ascendant. The Ascendant is the most personal and distinct factor of a birth chart. It is the symbol of a person's first emergence into independent selfhood. It carries the, quote, seed of the self, close quote, and expresses the quality of the time of birth. So it's not this sign that we're looking at, it's a self that has been revealed to us. It's like, for instance, a metaphor would be we're sitting in a room and then all of a sudden we get this kind of object, and the object is revealed to us, but we can't see everything that's in it because it's wrapped up in a box. And so this box is what we would call a gift. So this Ascendant sign is a gift that's been given to us. And just like if you were in a dark room or you didn't know what was in the box, you would do everything you could to try to ascertain what it was. But if you were just looking at the box, you would miss what's actually in it. So this is what we're talking about. We're not going to just look at the form of the sign. That's easy to do. Just go to astro.com and you can pull up your free horoscope or your free chart. What we're talking about is what is in this particular sign. And that is where we're going to look at. That these symbols represent something. And when they do represent something, what is it exactly that they're going to be showing? And that's what astrology's thing is to show you, who are you? What are you doing here? What is our job here? Where did we come from? Again, the Valentinian equation. It's what exactly am I going to do now that I'm in this place called consciousness? And the Ascendant is the sign that shows us exactly where we start from. So next we have the Descendant sign. Now what is a Descendant? In actual technicality, the Descendant is always 180 degrees from the Ascendant. So there you go. If you're looking up your chart and you see where the sun rose at the time of your birth, the Descendant sign is the place where the sun is not at the time of your birth. So it's the exact opposite, or nighttime, and the sun set. So the descendant of a birth chart is the point of awareness of others. It polarizes the ascendant's quality of self-awareness. It defines the individual's approach to interpersonal relationships and to relationships in general. It's the process of collectivization and socialization are also represented by this point. It reveals the type of activity that provides the individual with the experiences he needs in order to realize the significance of others. So now, not only do we have a sign of who we are, but now we're going to realize who we are in relation to others. This isn't who they are in relation to us. It's who we are showing to be in relationship to other people. This is extremely important because we're not isolated people. No man is an island. When I say man, I mean the Sanskrit manas, which is thinker. No person thinking, no thinking being with consciousness is alone. This is very important to realize that we are not alone. I don't mean to sound all alien about it, but what I'm saying is that we are amongst a plethora of not only other people, but other beings. So this is showing on our descendant side who we are to the people that we interact with. And oftentimes it's the exact opposite as we are in ourself. As people perceive us and as they experience us, it's different than who we really are. The authenticity somehow changes. So this is important to see. It's not as I view me, not as I was actually born, but on the flip side, what do people see me as? I know that's kind of a subjective answer, but when we go into the descendant astrological signs, we need to be aware that who I think I am and who you think I am are totally different things. Oftentimes in a group or something, I've said something that I thought was extremely meaningful, that was right to the point and that was extremely pertinent. And on the other side, the person thought that it was disrespecting their feelings, that they didn't feel that they were listened to, that they didn't feel understood. Now, how could that be twisted and turned so much? And this is what the descendant is showing, how when I'm into effect with others, what it is. Mine happens to be Libra, so it's a symbol of balance. It's saying that when I work with other people, they see me as either one balanced character, and I may see myself as the Aries character. And it's the integration of this. It's the pulling in of this into the psyche that we're working on in the tarot. So now we know that when we come up with a descendant card in our astrological pool, if we're looking at it as the sign of astrology, we're seeing, oh my God, this is how I'm going to affect someone else today. This is what is going to happen when I affect another person. This is going to be part of that. And here's a hint, the minor arcana is a microcosm of that descendant as well. So say Libra has particular degrees into it, and we'll go into this later. But each sign has 30 degrees that's been mathematically chopped up. Now, these degrees also correspond to cards. They correspond to numbers, they correspond to cards, they correspond to shapes. And so it's important to realize that this is going to be something that is going to present itself to us as we learn more about it. So the Ascendant is who I am to myself at my core and my individualization from the rest of the all, and the Descendant is who I am at my most extreme form of being who I am to you. And this is something that is really important to look at, because this energetic field, this vortex of self, is not just who I am to me, it's who I am to you. So next we have what is called the Midheaven, but a lot of people like to call it the Medium Coli. Now, what is the Medium Coli? This is pretty much the midpoint of the chart. So we've come with the Ascendant at the beginning of the sun. We have the Descendant at the set of the sun. So what is the Medium Coli? It is the noontime at the height. Now, This is important because the midheaven represents who we are to social experiences. It's the type of activity that we need to practice when it comes to social people. And also, it's a social integration and political power on one level, but it's a spiritual identity on another. So this is who we are in spirit. That's kind of difficult to go into, but it's important to realize that these particular forms are part of who we are. So just as we have feelings, we have sensations, we have certain kind of individual characteristics. These are the characteristics of the chart. These are like our eye color, or the type of kind of height we have, or the build we have. So when it comes to social integration and political power, the orientation of social experiences, this is the midheaven. This is the zone of where the sun always appears up top, of where our sustenance come from, of where we're guided from. So a lot of times this will be like the area right between Saturn's pinnacle and its descent up top of the chart, and that is where the soul comes in. Now this is extremely important to realize, because one side, as Christine Payne talks about, is the involution side. The other side is the evolutionary side. So right up top is where the monad, the individual spiritual self, comes flying through into the chart. And that is the attunement place, where if we can get there, we become not only our spiritual identity, but it gives us our social integration. It says who we are. It's our character. So this is another tarot card that can be ascertained. What card is it that this astrological sign shows is going to be where I need to pay attention. So if I get, say, I don't know, Sagittarius, and I see that my midheaven is right in Sagittarius, that line is going to show where my monad has flown into my chart and where the actual individualization process has begun. Not where it individualized to, but where it began. And so that's why it's important to realize that this is where we're picking up these things at. This is how I became who I am. This is how I'm Timothy Reader Wright. The monad came through at this point. The one came through and it divided itself into the many. And as the many, it went into a place where it was going down and down and down, and then bam, right at the ascendant, it became a concrete self. So it's important to realize this in the tarot spread, because this is what it's supposed to show to us. And the minor arcana is cut up this way too. So now we have three signs. We have the ascendant, we have the descendant, and we have the midheaven. So next we're going to look at the next portion of astrology. So next we have our what you would call immunculae. This is the polar opposite of the midheaven, and it describes the point where the process of growth and differentiation has reached its apex. So it's important to realize this because we correlate these signs to more clearly symbolize the nature of where we're rooted at. When we came through in the heights, we became someone, and then that someone was rocked into who they are. And who they are, it's our psychological kind of starting place. The mind has been created at this point. This is our root. This is our most secure place we know. And whatever this means is what we're going to use to show what exactly is going on with us psychologically. It's the symbolism. Now, it's important to realize that these are symbols. These initiatic energies are not tied up in a form. So, say if your immunculae is Leo, like mine, then you're not going to be just tied up into this lion thing, but you're going to most likely represent the core of your psychological self as this earth earthly thing. This earthly sign is going to be an energetic kind of roadway or signpost to where you're at when it comes to relating to your mind. So again, we can see that now we have a psychological self, we have a cosmic self, we have a spiritual self, and we have a social self. Okay, so next we have the horizon minion as the axis of awareness and growth. Now, what Meyer says in the handbook to the humanistic astrologer is that the horizon is the axis of awareness, and the meridian, which is the vertical line, is the growth and power. Now, these axes are important because, again, we're seeing who we are. This is the cross of this self. This is the cross of the self of others. This is the cross of the self as our spiritual self. This is the cross of the self of our psychological self and of our crystallized particular place where we became a self. So this isn't just our mind, this isn't just a body, this isn't just our social persona, and this isn't just a spiritual thing. This is all of our bodies becoming who we are in our lower forms as we present ourselves on a daily basis. So in the birth chart, the horizon is the horizontal line, and it divides the upper and lower hemispheres. It represents in graphic form the symbolic surface of the earth, with the sky above and the horizon and earth below. This axis forms the two poles of human awareness, self-awareness and awareness of others. And then we have the meridian as the axis of growth and power. In the birth chart, the meridian is the vertical line, which divides the eastern from the western hemispheres. This axis defines the two poles of human experience, organic growth and political, or if transmuted, spiritual power. So it's important to see that we're going to have a social and political self, or if we transmute that persona, we're going to have a spiritual power that comes in. Power coming from the root French word pouvoir, which means ability or to be able to. But it's important to realize that this is who we are. So when I say this is who I am, I'm not really talking about something unless I'm grounded in my birth chart, because this is our highest cosmic self. This is who we are in our entire relationship to whatever else is. This is extremely important to grasp. So this is why we've created these modules, and this is why tarot is such a powerful tool for the self-awareness and the initiation into expanding who we are on all levels. Okay, so here we are. We're looking at the actual Mayan calendar. Now, I don't know if anybody has realized, but at the time of this publication, it's February of 2013. So we just recently went over a big hysteria about the Mayan calendar and how everything was going to end. And it didn't in 2012. But it's important to realize that we have a fascination to cycles. We're born on them. Everybody's born, and then everybody dies. As far as their particular form, and then there's a duration between the beginning and the end. So we are in our foundation cycle. Now, in the Rider-Waite, in the English tradition, we see right on the Wheel of Fortune card that there's three forces, which are the beginning, the middle, and the end, pulling this wheel of time around. And on the sides, we have these fixed positions. But now these, I've been confused in the past because I thought that these astrological correspondences were supposed to be the fixed axes, and that's not what they are. In fact, this has been extremely revealing when reading Michael Meyer's Handbook to Humanistic Astrology. So on these cards we see that there's four figures in the top of the Wheel of Fortune. Now, I thought these were, like I said, the axes of our birth chart, so it was throwing me off a little bit. It wasn't explained until I read Marvin Meyer's Handbook to the Humanistic Astrologer, and it threw me into this amazing, amazing realization when I read it. I'm going to quote out of it. I highly recommend you getting this book with your tarot work, just like Bishop Towler has recommended that I get it, and I did. It's pretty inexpensive. It was published a while back. But here we have the first one is going to be, let me see, on the upper left hand side, it's going to show the zodiac releasing particular kinds of power. So we have the Taurus and we have the Scorpio, which are the equinoctial powers, and these are going to be the intense dynamism of the equinoctial signs. These aren't Aries and Libra, but these are the power that's generated, and at these particular times the energy is dispersed. Now Taurus is actually coming up very soon in the winter solstice time. We have just gone into the Aquarius, so we'll have Aries, and then at Taurus we have what's Wesak, and that is a time of great initiation. In a lot of the studies and spiritual groups, Wesak is a time where we're gathering all of this Aries energy and we're pushing it right into a time where we get this amazing dynamic effect. The next thing is Leo and Aquarius, and these are solstical power of the solstice, and these produce a kind of manifested activity that's personal or collective, and the release of this type of power will be manifested as a strong outburst of energy toward the focalization of the personality or in the form of a society. Now, I have to tell you that this is being done on the new moon in the time of Aquarius. So the power that's being released right now is of maximum effect that's been built up through purificatory rites and through a lot of preparation. I came here and I decided to share this because these are times of great initiatic effect. These are times when we can prepare ourselves, when we can get ready, and we can do the work that needs to be done between these forms of the Ascendant, the Descendant, and up at the top we have our Midheaven, and at the bottom our Mayan Calendar. This is important because when these times come, we're ready to transmit something. So recently we just passed through my Midheaven, and now we're at Aquarius, where we're going to deliver this message to the entire internet for free. So it's important to realize that these energies are actually coming somewhere. They're portals. They represent certain powers. So next I made this slide to show that in Michael Meyer's book, he says that there are two astrological approaches. And what we're seeing here is a more people-oriented approach. But there's also the events, and they share astrology is about, events, and when your grandma comes to town, what kind of crazy things going to happen there. And it's a little bit of a paranoia. I'm watching the news and I'm looking at where's this certain thing going to happen that's going to freak me out, or is going to change everything, or is going to be fruition, or is going to help me. And that is a lot of horoscopy, but it's not the type of astrology we're looking at as practitioners of the tarot. The type we're looking at is people-based astrology. And this is the only type of individuation work we can do with the tarot. This turns a tarot spread into an amazing, amazing energetic effect. Now, we're not going to go and get crazy about astrology, but we're learning that there are astrological correspondences in the tarot. And I don't think that that can be said in a more dramatic fashion, because before the Continental Tarot was studied by all these tarologists, it was very underground. And so we had this kind of astrology separated from everything else, and it's on the newspapers, and they really didn't get to what we were talking about today now. But they were opening up the gate, so to speak, for people to start learning about astrology. But now we're in a place of freedom of speech. We're in a place where we can have this kind of sacred haven that we can talk about these subtle and magnificent energies that are taking place in our day-to-day lives. These transform relationships. These transform the mind. These transform our ability to manifest power, either spiritually or socially, politically, activistically. It's important to realize that there's stuff going on, and if you're at a place where you can divine with tarot, where you can plug into your intuition, then what's going on is that we are getting to a place where we're looking at how do events not symbolize what's going to happen, but how do we as people control what's happening in these events. So that's where we're going to a more of an empowering tarot, rather than just you better watch out, you better not cry kind of thing. And it's a magnificent, magnificent time. And like I said, this is being delivered for free to all who want to view it and all who want to take the time. There are specific and particular things that are being grafted into the ear, that are being put into the mind, that are going into the subconscious, that is extremely important to review this video a few times and realize that we are making an epoch of a change right here and right now. Now next I made this slide where we have our water, air, and fire, because this specifically relates to Continental Tarot. And we have some astrological things to talk about in it as well. Now, though we didn't talk about Earth, Earth is of course the place where we're starting at, but it's really important to realize that at each equinox and solstice, there's a certain kind of power in the elements that are generated. Like at the spring equinox, Marvin Myers says fire power is generated and concentrated and distributed. So this is the fire triangle. At the summer solstice, water power is generated by Cancer and concentrated through fire at Leo and distributed by Earth at Virgo. So each one of the 4 quarters of our cross actually has an energetic concentration place, a generation place, and a distribution place. This is profound information, because now we're starting to see that throughout the entire 4 elements, there's 3 inside of each one of those that creates 12 signs. So when we're looking at signs and we hear in one of these books that we might be reading that we have a fire power, we know exactly at what time of the year it's going to correspond to what portions of planets that are cycling in our chart. And we know when we throw a card, when we quote cast unquote our cards in tarot, we know that this is a generative, concentrating, or distributive power. This is profound. And anybody that throws cards out on the table should know these correspondences, because this element is what we're composed of. These are amazing time-based mysteries that were in antiquity closed to people that were not of a high degree of the hieratic priesthood. These are hermetic traditions. These are astrological initiatory practices that have been revealed first through Dane Rudhar, but now through Michael Meyer in the Handbook to the Humanistic Astrology. We have what can now be seen as the concentration and the science of astrology as related to who we are as people. It's extremely empowering. So now we're looking at the planets. And then we're going to move a little bit faster here because we have a few more slides to go, but we're now looking at the planets, and these are not just things that are moving around in the planets. We have these on our signs. Usually they're not exact ratios, and we're going to talk about aspects in a minute, but these planets are orbs. They call them orbs in astrology. But more importantly, as you can see on the tarot of El Gran Tarot Esoterico, which also Christine Payne highly favors as an initiatic tarot. We have Gichtel's Darkman. We have it where we have these energies. And if you look on the slide, you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots. Well, this was explained to me by Christine, so I will explain it. However, there are portions of this particular type of mysteries that have to be gone through with actual help. So we can't go into everything about it, and maybe in some other slides we could. But as far as astrology is concerned, we're seeing where we have a planet at our crown, and it flies into our root chakra. And then that goes through our third eye, into our belly, and then bam, right into the heart is what Balmain creates called the Shrek. Now, what she showed me is that it actually comes back out, and it hits the solar plexus, and it hits the throat, and then it hits the spleen, which is the generative chakra, and as it comes back out, it hits into the third eye again, I think it is. Yeah, it hits back into the third eye. So what we have here is an energetic effect of a incoming and outgoing energetic spiral. Now, this is astrology, and why are we talking about chakras, and why are we talking about this? It's because in the Continental Tarot, these correspondences are foundational. When we get into later slides about the Kabbalah, we're going to go through that too and see how when a tarot card pops up, what exactly is happening. So now we see that we have the elements, we have all of our birth chart in front of us, we're looking at the tarot now here, we've casted a card, and it comes up with the planet tarot. What do? Well, we see now that there's an actual alchemy, which we'll talk about in the alchemy slide, or module. But there's an alchemy that's happening when these planets, which are the dynamic portions of our chart, are flying through. Now, the planets are the things that move. The zodiacal aspects stay. They stay the same. But the planets move. And as they move, they generate into new houses, which we'll see next. And they also go into aspects, which is extremely important because now these aspects are actual places where the energy is concentrating. This is our sacred geometry. And all sacred geometry we're going to learn in one of our modules about sacred geometry, highly worked by the Robert Gilbert of Vesica Institute. He has an amazing seminar. I would highly recommend you go to the Vesica Institute. But for here, we're seeing that in our chart, there's aspects when one planet is in a certain degree zodiacally of a sign. And we can see that we have the conjunction, the semi-sextile, the sextile, the square, the trine, the quincunx, the opposition. So they have extreme meanings, but they're very subtle, and they take a long time to talk about. So I would highly recommend to get Marvin Meyer's Handbook to Humanistic Astrology, because these aspects are talked about. And this is not just a sidereal mess like we're seeing here. These are not just zodiacal signs, but these are actual energetic forces that go through and work in us. They're sacred mathematical equations, and that's how they have to be seen. Otherwise, the energies will just be some nebulous thing on a chart that we don't really understand. So here's what I wanted to talk about: aspects. Now here we have the Marseille Tarot, because that's one of my favorites, and I wanted to talk about that because the tarot can be used in pairs to understand aspects. This is profound, and I keep saying it's profound because it really is. When we throw these cards out and we see them in our spread, when we see the major arcana or the minor arcana, because the minor arcana also divides into the actual signs. We have the 4 particular categories of the minor arcana, and then we have all the trump cards and we have all the numbered cards, and those represent not only kabbalistically places on the tree of life and our actual tree and our zodiacal chart, but they represent the degrees. and they are particularly devoted to aspects. So when in our chart there's a planet that goes to a specific aspect, we can see that there's cards that can bring our attention to those aspects in our chart. And these are the correct continental scholarly correspondences to the tarot. They differ completely from the English schools. As you can see, they probably may be confusing, but these are correct. These are the correspondences that were used for 2 centuries before the 18-year, as I quote Christine Payne in the Underground Stream, before the 18-year cycle of the English schools. There were 200 years of correspondences that generally went into these type of attributions. So I've talked about in some of the groups and forums about this, and so has Christine, and so have other students, but it's important to realize that these are the actual correspondences to the tarot, and that if you double them up, you can look at aspects and you can see, wow, when this happens and this is going on, what do these 2 things mean? So you can put them together and you can see that this particular minor arcana relates to the major 2 arcana this way. So I put them here for your convenience. You may want to pause the video and write these down, or go to Amazon.com and buy Christine Payne Towler's Underground Stream, because these correspondence are completely and utterly vital to our understanding of the tarot. So here I've also laid out the planetary trumps. Now these are important, and I used one of my favorite alchemical works for this, because as we saw in the previous slide, that there is a correspondence to these planets in our chart, in our bodies, and these are just beautiful images from Robert Place, his Alchemical Tarot, which has been republished for those who want to purchase it. Amazing tarot. But I also put here the correspondences in the Continental Tarot School. So just like we placed it throughout this entire video, the actual correspondences of scholarly work, they're going to differ significantly from the English versions. So we have the High Priestess as the moon, we have the sun as the world, Mercury as the star, Venus as the empress, Mars as strength, we have Jupiter as the emperor, and we have Saturn as justice. These are the scholarly correspondences that have been backed up by 200 years of research. And this is what we're showing here, because when these come up, now we're seeing that there's orbs that go around our chart. And when one of these planets comes up, it's showing that there is a, I'm going to release something here, there's a chakra that needs to be looked at. There's an energetic place in our bodies, and I say bodies in plural, that needs to be looked at, that needs to be worked with, that needs to be focused on, that needs to be dealt with. And there's particular alchemical operations that we're going to talk about in our alchemy module, that you're going to learn about these particular things that we're talking about. But for now, it's important to see that there are planetary, there are zodiacal, and there are complete elemental portions of the tarot that are absolutely foundational to its understanding. So that concludes our module for astrological symbolism and the Continental Tarot. My name is Timothy Reeder Wright. Hope you enjoyed this presentation. I'd like you to go to GnosticTarotCards.com, our dedicated website for the Gnostic Tarot Cards entries, blogs. You can go to our blog, but also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Gnostic Tarot Cards on YouTube. You're going to be able to see these modules as they come out for the first 2 weeks to a month of their publication. So the purchase modules can be gotten on DVD once they're taken off of the subscription channel, but for now they're made available for free because we want this message to be spread to as many people as possible. You can go and like us on Facebook. join the Western Mystery Tradition group, you can go ahead and look us up on Facebook and get up-to-date notices and brand new kind of alerts on what's going on with the blog and website. Follow us on Twitter because we do a daily 3-card pull and share this kind of gnosis with everybody who wants to learn about it. We have network blogs if you want to join the blog community and Blogger. So once again, I was happy to bring this presentation to you on the new moon of Aquarius. Thank you for listening and hope to see you back soon.